So with that potential...
Good afternoon. I'm supposed to start at the beginning when it comes to talking about my book. The origins weren't quite solid, as to warrant me aping the grim fairy tales and saying once upon a time. But it has taken me a long time to get to this stage and having a published book. Started researching and writing it at least 3 years ago, and some of the people present know that I was more than a little unsure of what direction that I wanted to go in. The first draft was inspired by Pride and Prejudice and some of the books that have attempted to follow Austen's template. It involved a woman living in the Victorian period, raised by her stepmother and alongside her two stepsisters, one of whom was nicer to her than the other. Rebecca, the heroine at the time, had inherited a large fortune from her mother and was the only living descendant of her mother's line. It was called Driftwood, and had Rebecca getting rescued from drowning in the early chapter by the brother of a local landowner. It was also in part influenced by Madonna's song Frozen, as it had the idea of a woman unfolding slowly over the course of the novel. Rebecca was closed off at the start, and her rescuer encourages her to let her walls down. The world of that initial draft expanded when my parents told me of a monument in Kirkby Lonsdale's churchyard dedicated to 5 maids who had died in a fire in 1820. Went over to Kirkby Lonsdale and investigated the 5 maids, trying to trace their family histories. When I discovered that one of the maids, Bella Corthwaite, had originally come from Lancaster, I decided to make it a dual perspective piece, having Bella's working class experiences and Rebecca's upper class experiences of the same time period. Then I discovered a real life family that lived in Halton, a village not too far from Lancaster, at the same time. The Bradshaws seemed to be the principal landowners in the village and owned Halton Hall, a building that's sadly not standing anymore. I went over to visit Halton on more than one occasion, trying to get a sense of the place, and was pleased to find that there were numbers of Victorian buildings still standing. The local newsagent was helpful at that stage, as they stocked books about the history of the village, and one of them provided information on the family, as well as photographs of some of the children. The Bradshaws had a mystery in their past, as the parents had decided to sell their holdings and go to Australia, but only take some of their children. I opted to use the name of one of their daughters, Millicent, and fictionalise their story, making this character, instead of Rebecca, the focal point of the Lancaster-based strand. I continued to bring sections to the writing group that I was involved with, but remained unsure about whether I was taking it in the right direction. I then decided to complicate things further, opting to bring in elements of the fan fiction series I'd been working on. It had been niggling me by certain American fantasy shows, whose series finales typically involved the world being at risk and didn't have more crossovers. I created an alternative to the Greek gods and goddesses, taking the conceit that the legends had been based on real people. I created a race of beings capable of incredible things, and they could live for thousands of years. They were also the reason behind the odd things that have happened in the Bermuda Triangle. The character of Vanella was my version of Aphrodite, and surrounded by characters such as my version of Hephaestus, Apollo, Ares, and other prominent members of the Greek pantheon. The fifth draft was inspired by many things. I have been a long-standing viewer of both Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Doctor Who, drawn in large part by the fact that the female characters are so strong and well crafted. They never made perfect creatures or demonised. The good characters have their weaknesses and selfish tendencies, and the bad characters have strong connections and moments of intense bravery or love. I wanted to make sure that the characters I was creating displayed the same depth. It was around this time that I became a member of the Preston Archives, gaining access whenever I wanted to the vast amount of records held there. I spent a good deal of time both at that record office and travelled to Kendall's record office. I also spent some time in Barben, a village not far away from Kirkby Lonsdale, after learning that one of the landowners in the area during the 1820s and 30s had a home in that village. The character of Mr. Kettering was created at that stage. He was supposed to bridge the gap between the wealthy landowner and Bella, and given the position of estate manager and the tendency to drink at the Sun Inn in Kirkby Lonsdale, where Bella's little sister worked. I had changed the perspectives so it was in the first person and given Bella a fictional experience. She was saved from the Melton Crown fire and got a position in the Bradshaw household as a housemaid. She was fired from that position because she had a close bond with Mr. Kettering, something that caused scandal. I decided to have her spend time in America and take the route of falling in love with an escaped slave named Sebastian. I did a lot of research into the slave trade and used some of the real names of the people who took part in the Underground Railroad. There is a wealth of information on the internet, even down to which slave went where they started off, where they ended up, and even in some cases, who they travelled with. The seventh draft, inspired by the kind encouragement of members of a writing group I attended on West Street, at the introduction of the modern day, alien and future sections. In Ella's past in her home, her interaction with a character named Serena and a character from Basilica's future called Pote provided a large section of the plot. Despite having a number of people who had been positive and reassuring about the quality of what I was writing, I still was a long way from finishing it. I'm one of those who need strict deadlines, and that's why I'm glad that a recently made friend, Errol, gave me a solid deadline of the 1st of April. It was that and the fact that he kept asking at regular intervals how far along I was that made me change the book. He gave me the will and drive to finish it. I opted to use a combination of a set of diary entries that I had written for a fictional couple beginning in the 1980s and tracking their development from friends to lovers and then to parents. I used Ella, detailing one of her lifetimes. The character changes her appearance, her name and her connections each time that she dies, but retains her core characteristics. The diary entries were rewritten to include some of the events of Ella's past lives, such as fighting in the Battle of Medina, an ancient battle I discovered. I created the characters of Luciano, Dawn and Mary to be Ella's children during that lifetime, and had Mary be the main point of view. The idea was to have Mary be the narrator during the present day sections, but have the voices of Jared and Sarah relay their thoughts through their diary entries. I managed to completely document well before the deadline and format it as best I could. The act of uploading to CreateSpace was something I've never done before, and I made a number of errors. Steps are clearly set out, but there are many different choices that any writers that choose to self-publish that way have to make. You have to choose a cover, the size of the book, colour of the pages, where you want the book to be distributed, the price of copy in various different countries such as the UK, America, Ireland and elsewhere. I accidentally just created a Kindle version for the first printing, but then added a paperback copy.